This is my attempt to walk 96 miles in 7 days through the Scottish Highlands along the West Highland Way. I'm Grace, and the longest I'd walked before I signed up to do this was 11 miles in one day, and then I was too sore to move for a week afterwards. As you can see, I'm home now, and it's time to share the highs, the lows, and everything in between. This video is my story of walking the West Highland Way with my husband Brad. After months of planning and preparation, we took the train to Glasgow. I was so nervous. We'd had to stop training for the last couple of weeks, and I didn't know how I'd be just walking the first day, let alone walking for 7 days straight. It felt completely impossible. The West Highland Way actually starts from Milngavie, which is just on the outskirts of Glasgow. So we got up early and took the train into Milngavie, stopped to pick up some lunch, and then we went to the start of the West Highland Way and began walking. Thankfully, the terrain on the first day was really kind to us. There was one hill at the start, and then the rest of the day is pretty gentle.
See off into the Highlands where we're headed.
As we were walking, I quickly realised that my blisters that I'd been struggling with during the training were coming back, so I was trying to apply blister plasters.
You'll never believe what we've just spotted. Highland cow. There's a whole field of them. Oh, yeah. Spotted the house on the hill.
We kept going and we stopped at a lovely cafe on the way that day. I think it was called the Turnip and the Beet. It was so nice in there. We had ice cream and a hot drink. Then we carried on walking the final 3 or 4 miles to our accommodation that night in Drummond. But the final 2 miles of day one, I just had such bad cramp in my hip and my leg, and I kept trying to stretch it out. And I was thinking, if this is day one, the easiest day, how on earth am I going to get through another 6-7 days of walking? It was actually a really tough start to the week. My blisters coming back immediately and struggling with this hip pain, and by the time we got to the accommodation I was absolutely exhausted. I managed to get in the shower before we headed out for dinner. We went to the Clachan Inn, which was so nice.
We survived day one, and it does feel like a survival. It was harder than I was expecting. I was expecting it to be hard, but I just got into lots more pain than I wanted to, especially like my hip, my knee on one side, and I was just having trouble with blisters, which is super frustrating. But we did it. We got through day one. The question is now, can we get through another 7 days of walking? I don't know. I literally have no idea if this is possible. But we're here and we're doing it.
So day 2 arrives, we get up, pack our bags, stopped at the lovely bakery in Drummond for some food, and then started our walk.
Clear skies today. We just saw Loch Lomond for the first time in the distance. We got a big old climb up a hill to start the day, Conic Hill, which lots of people dread along the walk, but it's the next part. You can't skip it, but we're not planning to. Ooh. Blisters are sore. Can't believe we're only on day 2.
Because we'd struggled so much on day 1, and I had felt like we hadn't really had enough breaks because I'd had to keep stopping for my blisters, but we hadn't really planned stops, and so it felt all a bit haphazard. For day 2, we went in with the plan that every 2 miles we would have a break, which sounds pretty regular, but I knew I needed to look after my feet and change my socks. I was tracking our walk on my watch, so every time we hit 2 miles in, I would say, right, time for a break. And we did that. We got all the way to Conic Hill, which is probably my favourite place from the whole walk, and if you get the chance to do just a small section, I would recommend going up Conic Hill. It is really hard work, but it's worth it. The views at the top are amazing across all of Loch Lomond and off into the mountains.
Oh my days. What a view.
We'd been tracking on our watches, but Brad had also been tracking in the Maps app, which told us how much we'd done and how much we had left. And this day was meant to be 14.5 miles. So we'd done what we thought was 8 miles, and we opened the app and it says, you've walked 8 miles and you've got 8 miles to go. And at this point we realised that the tracking of what we've done does not line up with what's left. And by the time we'd realised this, it actually got kind of late in the day, and where I thought we'd had maybe 6 or 7 miles left, we had over 8 miles to go, and it felt just never ending. Anyway, once you come off of Conic Hill, you just walk along the side of Loch Lomond. It was beautiful along there. We loved it. Lots of pretty beaches. But we couldn't really stop to enjoy it because the time was just disappearing. So we pushed and pushed all the way towards Rowadennan, where we were stopping that night. And we'd booked to have dinner at 7:30. We knew we weren't going to make that.
It's about 7 p.m. and we've still got 2 miles left. So we're probably not going to be done until about 8.
And then they started calling us at about 8:15, saying, are you coming still? And I was saying, we're still on our way. We will be there. We're coming as soon as we can. And we made it. And amazingly, even though their kitchen was meant to be shut, they served us food and we had a really nice lodge there. I was so tired. I remember sitting at the table just feeling like I was about to fall asleep. We're dealing with a bit of a problem with the map app that we're using. Yesterday it said 15 miles to do today. And so then you start walking and 8 miles in, it says you've still got 8.2 miles to go. And then you keep walking and the length of the walk just keeps going up and up and up until when we finished the walk, we'd actually done 18 miles. And it's just the mentality of like, you think that you've done all these miles, but you've actually got way more than you think left. I don't know where the discrepancy comes from. I think it might just be that we don't walk the perfect line along the path. And so that discrepancy adds up a lot over a long time. Anyway, we're absolutely shattered after just 2 days. At the moment, it just feels like an incredible mountain to climb. I mean metaphorically, but I guess it's kind of literally too. It feels impossible and I've got huge blisters. Bradley's getting blisters. It's hard. It's harder than we expected. It's harder than it seems to be made out to be online. It's supposed to be hard. We knew that. That's why we're here. We're doing it. The thing is, you finish the day, it's like, yeah, you've got that checked off, but now you've just got to carry on again tomorrow and do it all over again. I almost feel like I'm just in some weird state where it's like, walk, eat, sleep, repeat. Thankfully, I had decided to take a spare pair of boots with me, and I wore them from day 2. They did continue to rub the blisters, but it was a bit more manageable. But they were already really painful, so by the morning of day 3, I was in quite a lot of pain with my blisters, and I was really nervous because I'd heard that day 3 was the worst terrain day, and I just didn't know what to expect. On day 3, you spend the whole day walking alongside the edge of Loch Lomond. It's supposed to be 14.5 miles. Because I was in pain and tired, I decided to try and take it slow at the start of the day. I thought slow and steady will get me through. And we also changed our plan. So rather than stopping every 2 miles according to what our watches said we'd done, we started stopping every 2 miles according to what we had left. So that actually helped quite a lot, because each time we stopped, it was actually taking a chunk off of what was left to go. So by this point, we're 3 days in, and you'd think, well, you must be finding it a bit more manageable by now, you've got used to it. But honestly, it was just feeling like a bigger and bigger mountain that I had no idea if I'd be able to complete. Every single day, I would wake up and say to Brad, I don't know if I can do this. And we'd start the trail, and within 100 metres, I'm saying, I don't know if I can get to the end of today. I don't know if this is possible, because every single step I was taking was painful. My blisters were so sore on both feet, so I'd take a step and it would take us out. Like it was really hard going. I wanted to give up every day, multiple times. I really just wanted to quit. And there was a couple of times where I'd just say to Brad, I don't know why I'm here. Why am I doing this? It was so much harder and so far beyond anything that I thought I could do. Even as I was doing it, I was in so much pain and I just couldn't see myself being able to keep going through the pain. And I just think, just do another mile.
Nicer than the down on the flat.
And I don't know where I found it in me to carry on, but I just felt like I needed to push through, and I would just focus on that day and think, if I can get through today, that's amazing. And then we'll deal with tomorrow when it comes.
For some reason they don't put the number 4 on the inside.
We stopped for an amazing picnic lunch that day. We had our dehydrated food and our brew kit. We were on the beach and the views were amazing. That was a highlight. But we'd actually had a late lunch, and then we got to Inversnaid Hotel where there's an amazing waterfall, and by this time it was 4 p.m. and we still had 6 miles to go. And right after Inversnaid Hotel the terrain gets really hard. I have barely any footage from it because it was so hard, we just weren't filming or taking photos. There was massive boulders that you're having to climb over or go round. There was even one point where there was a ladder that was probably 1.5 times the height of me. It all just felt extremely hard, and so we pushed on, and unfortunately Brad was really struggling with a pain in his foot, which just seemed to be getting worse and worse. Finally we got to the end of this crazy terrain bit, and there was still maybe 3 miles left or something, but it was late in the day. I didn't know whether the place we were staying that night was going to be serving food when we arrived, but I thought the earlier we arrive the more likely we'll be able to get something. Every day when there was about 2 miles to the end, I'd call my nephew just to chat, and he'd be motivational and encourage us on. It was at the end of day 3. The light was going down because it was actually really late in the day. Each day I'd ask him to find us a motivational quote, and that day the quote he gave us was, "It feels impossible until it's done." And for those final couple of miles, I just had that looping in my mind, and I just thought, I just got to get it done. I just got to get it done. During this time, we saw these crazy wild goats come running down the mountain to the edge of the loch. I've never seen goats that size, and it felt like they were leaping miles. At the end of the loch, you walk up a hill, and then you walk down from this hill, down, and that felt like it went for ages. But then suddenly, round the corner, appeared Bainglass campsite, which is where we were staying. And we rushed in, checked in, and I said to them, "Is there any chance you're still serving food?" They checked with the chefs and they served us. And I saw later that we were 3 minutes past their cut-off time, and we were so grateful. Everyone said to expect it to be hard, and they're not kidding. It came out at 20 miles on our watches rather than the 14.5 that it said. It's just slow going. It's more than doable, but it's hard work, and you need to allow time for it. After that really gruelling day, day 4 is considerably easier, much shorter, and the trail is just an easier path all round. So we set off, and I don't really remember being in high spirits. I remember feeling exhausted, and it just felt like we really need to just get to the end of the day, because we knew the next day was the really big long day. We didn't want to get in late. Through all the training and every day of the walk, all that I had in my head was, if this is this hard, how on earth am I going to do 19 miles in one day? It just felt so impossible. It was so much further than anything I'd walked before. So day 5 had been in my head as just the peak of everything, and it was all amalgamating to that. We met lots of amazing people along the trail. One guy was 77, wild camping, carrying everything he needed on his back. That's amazing. There was lots of people wild camping. Something that's hard is that you're only overtaken by people faster than you, so you don't often see people that are slower than you. But some days, which was so fun, you would have another couple or group of people that were a similar pace to you, and you'd keep crossing paths with them when they'd have a break, or you would. And especially on day 4, there was a couple that kept happening with, And it was just the little boost that we needed, because I think we were in a bit of a midway slump. It had been so much harder than we thought. And although that day was actually a lot easier, we were both feeling a bit down. We needed the boost. So we were pushing through on day 4 and we were worn out. But we did it, and the views were amazing. We tried rushing to a cafe, which was a lovely little cafe, but unfortunately they stopped serving lunch. So we didn't get any lunch that day. When we got into Tyndrum, it was 5 p.m, which was much earlier than any of the other days that we'd finished. And we were just so happy to be able to rest. Finally, day 5 arrived. We got up at 5 a.m. We set off at 7 a.m, got some food, and we were on the trail by 7:30, walking. At the end of day 4, I called my nephew and I was just chatting away, and I said to him, we might have to skip some of day 5 because we weren't sure that we'd have enough time in the day to complete it. If we got to the halfway point and it was too late in the day, we'd have to get a taxi or go on a bus. And he said, you are not getting a taxi. You have to do the walk. You can't miss them. And there was something about him saying it that just made me think, right, I have to do this. And that day, the quote was, it's only the people who risk going too far that find out just how far they can possibly go. And I thought, that's the whole point. That's why I'm here. I'm risking going too far to find out how far I can possibly go. And everything had been building up to this 19-mile day. I needed to just give it the best shot I possibly could. I think because I'd built it up so much in my head and I had felt like everything was preparing me for that, and I knew it was going to be hard, it was almost like I found something extra within me that day, and we just really pushed ourselves. It was stunning scenery. Originally, we planned to walk up Ben Nevis at the end of the West Highland Way, which we were really excited to do. And for most of the walk, we had planned to. About 5 days in, the weather forecast drastically changed, and the day we would have been walking up Ben Nevis looked really bad. The weather forecast was 50-mile-per-hour winds, a lot of rain, and also fog, which is not ideal for climbing a mountain. And we'd always said that if the weather's not right, we're not going to go up. We just made the decision that we weren't going to do it. And that was a massive weight off our minds. For the final 3 days of walking, it was nice to know that that was going to be the end. We got to the halfway point by midday. The second half of the day was so much harder. We were worn out, that's what it was. Most of the day is on a old military track. A lot of the West Highland Way is along this old military track. But especially on day 5, over Rannoch Moor, the military track is very hard and it's not very nice on your feet. Rannoch Moor is the largest uninhabited area in the UK. It feels like the wilderness. You're in the middle of nowhere and you're on this track and you're absolutely exhausted. Everything hurts. Every step is painful. But we pushed on, we kept going. And one of my favourite parts of the entire walk was when we went over the little hill and off in the distance we could see the King's House Hotel. In my mind, everything was building up to trying to get to that point, and so seeing it off in the distance, I was so happy. It was just one of those moments of, I can't believe I'm nearly there. This day is nearly done. Something I never thought I would ever be able to do, and the end is in sight.
This is the craziest thing I have ever done in my life. And the hardest thing today was the 19-mile day. Something I never thought I could possibly do. And yet, I can now see the finish line. I can't believe it. I can't believe it's actually happening. It's real. The end is there. I'm going to have walked 19 miles in one day. We got up at 5 a.m. We left at 7, and the time now is 10 past 5. We've seen a few miles to go. Not far. Flippin' did it. Oh my gosh. Anything is possible. Anything is possible.
Oh my gosh!
We got to King's House Hotel at about 6:30. Really good timing. We were so happy because the hotel there is so lovely. It's not cheap. It was the most expensive place we stayed on the whole trip, but it was worth every penny. We had an amazing time and it was the rest that we needed.
We're now on day 6. I'm so tired. We're both really tired. We couldn't believe how fast we did 19 miles. We got here at 6 o'clock last night. I don't know why I'm trying to do this when the kettle's boiling. We had an amazing time at this hotel because it's gorgeous here. It's the best hotel we stayed at the whole trip. Very, very fancy, amazing food, and the views are incredible. Unfortunately, the weather's not as good today. We're due some rain and we've got to climb a huge hill. We've got to go up the Devil's Staircase and we're headed to Kinloch Leven. Mainly we're just exhausted. This is so hard. But yesterday was more fun. I think we went into it with a more positive attitude, so we had a better time.
But then right after this high of finishing this 19-mile day, which I'd built up in my mind and thought everything after that is going to be easy. It's all just going to be fine. If I can do that, I can do anything. So I'll be all right the next day. We start walking and I am in unbelievable pain. The worst pain I've had the whole trip. And I knew that we were walking along the road for the first mile or two, but after that we were away from the roads for the rest of the day. So I knew that if I wanted to back out, I had to decide then. And it was just weighing on my mind, like, I don't think I can do this. I stopped and I sorted out my blisters. I tweaked the plasters that I'd put on, started walking, and it was just a little bit less painful. And I thought, okay, I'll keep going.
Coming into Glencoe, this is epic. I'm in a lot of pain today. My toes so sore. It's so frustrating because I'm actually doing alright, like aches and pains. My legs could keep going, but my toes, the blisters are bad. Just trying to walk through the pain. It's just pain. Just gotta get there.
So we walked along and then you get to the beautiful little house. It's a very popular spot to stop and take photos. So we stopped there as well for a little break. And then you go up Devil's Staircase, which is the steepest climb of the walk. To be honest, it was probably one of the easier parts of the walk. Going uphill was so much less painful than anything else because there wasn't pressure on my toes and we'd trained for hill climbing, so it was fine. We got to the top and I sat down on this rock as the rain was coming over, and it sort of just hit me that I was actually doing this.
You're at the highest point. You're at the highest point.
This was the last but one day and I was pushing through incredible pain. I'd wanted to quit every single day. I'd wanted to quit multiple times every day. And at the top of that Devil's Staircase, looking across Glencoe, this place that I'd thought, that's really where I want to get to, I sat down and I was looking out and I was just incredibly proud of myself. One of those moments I never want to forget. We still had about 6 miles to go that day and it was fine going along over the hills, but then you start heading down and the downhill is really steep down into Kinloch Leven. And it's much more downhill than what you have to do uphill because of the start and end points. So you're doing about 2,000 foot descent very steeply, and it was so painful. It was crazy. So after this crazy descent, we arrived to Kinloch Leven. And then finally day 7 arrives, the final day. The weather forecast wasn't great. A lot of rain. We get up and put all of our waterproofs on and start walking, and I was just in tears.
Leaving Kinloch Leven now in amazing amounts of pain and really scared. But it's the last day.
The pain was just so much and I wanted to quit so badly. But I knew that it was the last day and quitting at this point just felt crazy. I'd pushed through so much pain already I just needed to do it for one more day. It was really hard. At the top, you walk along through this valley for a long time. The weather was horrible.
It's a bit soggy.
It was really hard to have any breaks at all when the weather's like that, because as soon as we would stop, we were just getting cold and wet. We had all the gear we needed, but it's just not enjoyable to stop in that weather. Looking back on it all is kind of hard, because every single moment was so much harder than I expected. We fell into this pattern, not even by choice, where you just walk, eat, sleep and repeat, and there really wasn't much else that you were doing. I'd get up in the morning and spend about an hour trying to sort out my blisters, putting plasters on and redressing them. I drained them and I was using antiseptic cream and just making sure that they were as good as they could be. But everything we were doing for the whole time was just about the walk. There wasn't really any relaxing. It was just, this is an incredible challenge, and if we want to complete it, we have to keep pushing on. The final day is around 15 miles, and 7.5 miles in, so about halfway, there's this sign where they get you to fill in a feedback form about the West Highland Way. And the path actually splits in two, and there's a shortcut route, which isn't the West Highland Way, but you can take it to get into Fort William quicker. And it makes you feel like you're near the end, but you're actually only halfway through the day. So after that, it felt so long. And you can see Ben Nevis, except you would be able to, but it was really cloudy, so we couldn't see Ben Nevis really.
Ben Nevis. And somewhere we're heading down the hill.
It kind of feels like some crazy dream. Did it even really happen? Did I really walk that far and for that long? We were walking for hours and hours every day, so much longer than anyone said we would. And then you start heading down this hill, and before long we saw the edges of Fort William in the distance, the final destination, the place we've been headed to for the whole walk. But it just never got any closer. We were going down this hill for so long, and I think I was in so much pain that my feet had just gone numb by this point. I was just trying to ignore them and just carry on.
We're descending down into Fort William at last. Can't see above the clouds, but at least we're getting out of them now. We've made it to the original end of the West Highland Way. It's still another mile to the actual. Who decided to just keep this sign? Why didn't they remove it?
And that final mile for me felt really long. Brad says it was just a blur for him, but for me it was like a never-ending treadmill where I'm like walking and walking, but I didn't feel like I was getting any closer. And then finally we got to the end of the West Highland Way. It was an amazing challenge. I'm not sure I would do it again. And it was a lot harder than I expected. But I did do it. And I'm never going to forget it.
We just walked that way. I can't believe it.
We did it.
As we decided not to climb Ben Nevis, and we decided to take the train along to Milngavie on the coast, which takes you across the famous Harry Potter viaduct. Fun to just sit on the train, rest with great views out the windows. Brad and I reflected on the walk, and I think the takeaway for me is that I can do hard things. I can do things so much harder than I ever thought, and I really need to believe in myself more. I hope you take it as an encouragement to sign yourself up to things you don't think you can do. Push yourself beyond what you think you're capable of, and believe in yourself enough to try that thing you've always wanted to do. I said it in my pack and prep with me video, and it was the thing that really got me through. It's supposed to be hard. Sometimes it's just supposed to be hard.